Bride hears groom's confession, minutes before the wedding. Her revenge surprised everyone. Jessica Parker felt her heart racing as she adjusted her veil one last time. Only 15 minutes remained before she would walk down the aisle and fulfill the dream she had planned for 2 years. That's when she heard the voices from the hallway. She immediately recognized the deep laughter of Brandon, her fiancé, talking to the groomsmen near the door of the hall where she was getting ready. "Dude, Jessica has no idea what happened yesterday," Brandon said, and something in his tone made Jessica stop breathing for a second. "Tell us, Brandon," replied Tyler, his closest groomsman. Jessica moved closer to the door, trying to hear better. What she heard next would change everything. "Remember how I said I got that extra money for the honeymoon?" Brandon paused. "I took it from our joint account without her knowing. I used it all on a soccer bet that went wrong." The groomsman fell silent for a few seconds. "How much?" asked Jake, another friend. $15,000. It was the money she saved working as a seamstress for the last 3 years. She put it aside penny by penny for our future home. Jessica's legs trembled. That money represented years of late night sewing dresses for others, saving every cent, dreaming of the simple little house they would buy after the wedding. "What now?" Tyler asked. "I'll make something up. Say it was stolen or the bank had an issue. She's so naive, she'll believe it." Brandon laughed again. "The important thing is, she never finds out it was a bet." "But Brandon, man, that's not right." Jake tried to intervene. "Relax. She loves me so much she won't even question it. And after the wedding, I'll figure out how to pay it back little by little." Jessica leaned against the wall, feeling the world spin. The woman who had raised her alone always said, "Sweetheart, a man who lies about money before marriage will lie about everything after." Her bridesmaids, her friends Ashley and Sarah, were in the bathroom touching up their makeup and didn't notice her state. "What's wrong, Jessica? You look pale," Ashley said when she returned. "Nothing, just normal nerves." Jessica forced a smile. Sarah, who had known Jessica since childhood, wasn't convinced. "I'm sure it's more than that. You look like you've seen a ghost." Jessica looked at the 2 friends who had helped with every wedding preparation. They deserved the truth, but not right then. "Girls, can you give me a few minutes alone? I want to say a prayer before the ceremony." The friends left respectfully, leaving Jessica alone with her thoughts. She looked in the mirror and saw the reflection of a woman who had been betrayed before even saying her first, "I do." The dress she had sewn herself, working late for months, now felt unbearably heavy. Every hand-sewn pearl represented hours of dedication to a love that wasn't returned with honesty. Jessica took a deep breath and thought of her mother, who had passed away 3 years earlier from diabetes complications. She had left her daughter not just the simple house they lived in, but also the most important lesson. A woman who respects herself doesn't accept lies, no matter how they're wrapped in promises of love. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. The $15,000 weren't just money. They were the result of her decision to refuse financial help from anyone, working twice as hard to prove she could build an independent life. They represented her dignity and self-reliance. A soft knock on the door interrupted her thoughts. "Jessica, sweetheart, it's time," said Mrs. Margaret, the church coordinator. "I'll be right there, Mrs. Margaret. Just 2 more minutes." Jessica opened her purse and grabbed her phone. There was an unread message from her cousin Jennifer, who lived in New York and worked as a lawyer. "Cousin, I couldn't make it in time, but I'm rooting for you. If you need anything, just call." Jessica quickly typed, "Jen, I really need to talk to you after the ceremony. It's urgent." The reply came almost immediately. "Of course, I'll be by my phone all day. Everything okay?" "I'll explain later." Jessica put her phone away and looked in the mirror one more time. The woman staring back was no longer the same one who had entered that salon an hour earlier. She was someone who had discovered a painful truth, but wouldn't let it destroy her. She opened the door and found her father, Mr. George, waiting to walk her down the aisle. The 65-year-old man had worked his whole life as a carpenter and could read people as well as he assessed wood. "My dear, you look different," he said immediately. "Dad, After the ceremony, we need to talk. Did something happen? Jessica gripped her father's arm tighter than necessary. Yes, Dad, but right now I need your strength to do what I have to do. Mr. George had raised Jessica to be a strong woman, but he'd also taught her that strength didn't mean accepting humiliation. He didn't fully understand his daughter's words, but he saw in her eyes the same determination her mother had when making tough decisions. Do you want us to stop everything right now? He asked quietly. No, Dad. I want you to walk me down there and trust me. The two walked down the church aisle. Jessica could feel the guests' eyes on her, all smiling and emotional. Brandon's family occupied the first pews on the right, while her relatives and friends sat on the left. Mrs. Barbara, Brandon's mother, waved enthusiastically from the front row. The 50-year-old woman had always been polite to Jessica, but there was a tone in her voice that made it clear she considered her son a good catch for an orphan seamstress. Jessica saw Brandon at the altar, elegant in his rented suit, wearing a confident smile. Beside him stood his 3 groomsmen, Tyler, Jake, and Ryan. She'd known them for years and now wondered how many other lies they'd helped Brandon hide. Father Matthew, who had baptized Jessica and known her family for decades, signaled for the music to begin. The organ notes echoed through the packed church, and Jessica started the walk she'd rehearsed so many times. With each step, her mind grew clearer. What she felt wasn't anger, but deep sadness mixed with disappointment. Brandon wasn't a bad man, but he was weak. And she'd learned from her mother that a strong woman doesn't belong with a weak man. When she reached the altar, Brandon extended his hand to greet her, his eyes shining with apparent emotion. "You're beautiful," he whispered. Jessica smiled, but it was a different smile, one of someone who just realized exactly who the person beside her was. Father Matthew began the ceremony with the traditional words about love, commitment, and honesty between couples. Jessica felt a bitter irony hearing about honesty from the priest, while standing next to someone who'd lied about his last 3 years of work. We are gathered here today to celebrate the union of Jessica Parker and Brandon Miller, the priest continued. Marriage is a bond built on mutual trust, respect, and transparency. The word transparency echoed painfully in Jessica's mind. When it was time for the vows, Brandon spoke first. He'd written his own words and pulled them from his jacket pocket. Jessica, you're the hardest working and most honest woman I've ever known. I promise to take care of you, protect our dreams, and never let our home lack anything. I promise to be transparent in everything and build a life with you based on trust. Some guests were moved by the words, but Jessica felt each promise like a new lie spoken before God and everyone she loved. Now, it was her turn. She had written her original vows the week before, but the words that left her lips were completely different. Brandon, 3 years ago I met a man who made me believe in fairy tales. Today I learned that not all fairy tales have happy endings, but that doesn't mean we can't write a different story. Brandon smiled, thinking these were romantic words, but something in Jessica's tone made Father Matthew raise an eyebrow. I promise to always be honest with you, even when the truth is painful. I promise never to lie about money, about feelings, or about anything that could affect our life together. The emphasis Jessica placed on the word lie made Brandon's smile fade for a few seconds, and I promise that if I discover you can't make the same promises, I'll take the necessary steps to protect my dignity and my future. A low murmur spread through the pews. Jessica's words sounded more like an ultimatum than wedding vows. Father Matthew, sensing something was amiss, hurried the ceremony along. Brandon Miller, do you take Jessica Parker to be your wife, to love and cherish her in joy and sorrow, in sickness and in health, in wealth and in poverty, all the days of your life? I do, Brandon answered, but his voice was less steady. Jessica Parker, do you take Brandon Miller to be your husband, to love and cherish him in joy and sorrow, in sickness and in health, in wealth and in poverty, all the days of your life? Jessica paused for what felt like an eternity. Brandon watched her with growing nervousness, and Mrs. Barbara leaned forward in the front row as if straining to hear better. I do, Father Matthew. But before we exchange rings, I'd like to make an announcement. Father Matthew clearly wasn't prepared for this. Jessica, dear, perhaps it would be better. It's important, Father. It concerns everyone here. Jessica turned to the guests, her composure unshaken. Her voice didn't waver in the slightest. I want to thank everyone here today to celebrate with us. Especially, I want to thank each person who helped me save the $15,000 I've set aside over the last 3 years for our future home. The silence in the church became almost tangible. Brandon turned pale instantly. Mrs. Evelyn, thank you for giving me extra work sewing your granddaughter's dresses. Mr. Robert, thank you for recommending me to your friends when they needed alterations. Every dollar you paid me was saved with care to build my future. Jessica could see the confusion on the guests' faces. They didn't understand where this speech was going. Unfortunately, I discovered just minutes ago that this money was lost on a soccer bet last night. The impact of her words was immediate. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the church. Brandon tried to say something, but Jessica raised her hand. Brandon, you don't need to deny it. I heard your conversation with the groomsmen 15 minutes ago. Jake, Tyler, and Ryan lowered their heads, clearly embarrassed. Brandon's family looked bewildered. Mrs. Barbara stood up from the front row. Jessica, what is this? My son would never do such a thing. Mrs. Barbara, you're right. Your son would never do this if he were an honest man. But unfortunately, he did. Brandon finally found his voice. Jessica, I can explain. Oh, I'm sure you can, Brandon. Can you explain to everyone here why you thought I was too stupid to find out? Can you explain why you thought love meant accepting being deceived? Father Matthew tried to calm things down. My children, perhaps it would be better to talk in private. No, Father Matthew, I want everyone to know, especially the women here today. I want them to know that self-respect is worth more than any marriage. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing, Mr. George, who had remained silent until then, stepped forward. Sweetheart, do you want to leave? No, Dad. I want to finish what I came here to do. Jessica turned back to Brandon. You told your friends I was too naive to discover the truth, that I'd make up some story about theft or a bank problem. You were wrong about many things, Brandon, but especially about my intelligence. Jessica, please, let's talk at home. There won't be a home, Brandon. At least not for the two of us. Jessica's bridesmaids, Ashley and Sarah, moved closer behind her, offering silent support. But I want to do one thing before I leave, Jessica continued. I want to give this back to you. She took off the ring Brandon had placed on her finger minutes earlier and held it out to him. And I want to give this to someone who truly deserves it. To everyone's surprise, Jessica walked over to where Mrs. Dorothy was seated, a 70-year-old woman who had worked as the church's cleaning lady for decades. Mrs. Dorothy, you've always been like a second mother to me since my own mother passed. I'd like you to have this. Jessica removed a golden chain with a small crucifix that had belonged to her mother from around her neck. It's not much, but it's a keepsake from the woman who taught me dignity is priceless. Mrs. Dorothy, tears in her eyes, accepted the gift. My dear, you're doing the right thing. The gesture deeply moved the guests. Several women in the church began to cry, not from sadness but from pride in Jessica's courage. Brandon tried once more. Jessica, I know I messed up, but we can talk. I'll return the money, I promise. With what money, Brandon? You haven't had a steady job in 6 months. You live off odd jobs and the allowance your mother gives you. The revelation hit Mrs. Barbara like a blow. It was true, but she thought no one knew. And you know what hurts me the most? Jessica continued. It's not even the money. It's realizing the man I loved thought I was too dumb to deserve respect. Jake, one of the groomsmen, stepped forward. Jessica, I tried to talk him out of it. I told him it wasn't right. Thank you for trying, Jake, but trying isn't enough when something is wrong. Tyler, who had laughed about the situation earlier that morning, now looked remorseful. We didn't think that... You didn't think. That's the problem. You didn't think I had the right to know. You didn't think that money represented years of my life. Ryan, the third groomsman, stayed quiet, clearly uncomfortable with the whole situation. Jessica looked at Brandon one last time. I don't hate you, Brandon, but I can't respect you anymore. And marriage without respect is just a signed piece of paper. She turned to the guests once more. I apologize to all of you for coming here today. I know many of you traveled far and spent money you didn't have. But I'd rather disappoint you today than live a lifetime of disappointment. Mrs. Susan, Jessica's aunt who had helped raise her, stood up and began to applaud. Other women in the family and community followed. Within seconds, more than half the church was applauding Jessica. Father Matthew, who had known Jessica since she was a child, smiled with pride. My dear, you showed more wisdom today than many do in a lifetime. Jessica kissed Father Matthew's hand in respect and walked toward the church exit, accompanied by her father and friends. Brandon stood at the altar, still trying to process what had happened. Mrs. Barbara approached him. Son, did you really do this? Brandon couldn't meet his mother's eyes. Mom, Answer me. Did you take the girl's money to gamble? Brandon's silence was answer enough. Mrs. Barbara, for the first time in her life, felt genuinely ashamed of her son. Outside the church, Jessica breathed in the fresh Saturday afternoon air. Mr. George hugged her tightly. Sweetheart, you made your mother proud today. Dad, did I do the right thing? Honey, a man who lies about money before marriage lies about everything after. Your mother always said that. Ashley and Sarah, still in shock over everything that had happened, searched for words of comfort. Jessica, we had no idea, said Ashley. I know, girls. You're my true friends. That's why I didn't tell you earlier. I didn't want you to feel forced to take sides. Sarah, always the most practical of the three, got straight to the point. So now what? What are you going to do? Jessica looked up at the blue sky of Charlotte, her hometown, and felt something she hadn't in months, a sense of freedom. Now I'm starting over, but this time, I'm doing it differently. They walked to Mr. George's car. Jessica got into the passenger seat, still wearing her wedding dress, but with an expression that was anything but defeated. On the drive home, she called her cousin Jennifer in New York. Jen, it's me. Jessica, how was the wedding? There was no wedding, cuz, and I need your help. Jessica told the whole story, and Jennifer listened in silence until the end. You did exactly what I would have done. Now tell me, do you want me to come there or do you want to come to New York for a few days? Actually, I want something different. I need your help with a legal matter. Of course, what do you need? I want to sue Brandon to get my money back. I have all the WhatsApp messages where he confirmed the money was safe. I have witnesses who know the money was mine. Jennifer paused for a few seconds. Jessica, it can be done, but it'll be a long, hard fight. Jen, I sewed my own wedding dress working until 2 a.m. for months. Long, hard fights don't scare me. When they got home, the small 2-bedroom house was decorated with wedding gifts that had arrived early. Ironically, many were household items Jessica had always dreamed of having. Mr. George helped his daughter remove her veil and sit in the living room. Sweetheart, do you want me to return the gifts? No, Dad. Let's pack them away carefully. One day I'll use them, when I find someone who deserves to share a home with me. That night, as Jessica was removing the pins from her hair, the phone rang. It was an unknown number. Hello? Jessica, it's Jake, Brandon's best man. Jessica hesitated, unsure whether to hang up. What do you want, Jake? I want to apologize for what happened today, and I need to tell you something important. I'm listening. Brandon didn't lose your money on soccer bets. Jessica's heart raced. What do you mean? He lent it to his cousin Stephen, who said he'd multiply the money in a business deal. Stephen disappeared with it. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve the whole truth. And because Stephen showed up at the church today after you left, he brought the money back. Jessica struggled to process the information. Brought it back? All of it. The $15,000. Said the deal worked out and came to return it. Brandon has the money now. And why did Brandon make up the story about the bet? Because he knew you'd be even angrier finding out he lent your money to his cousin without asking. He thought you'd never find out and that he could pay it back before the wedding. Jessica sat on the bed trying to make sense of it all. Jake, thank you for telling me. But this doesn't change anything. How doesn't it? You can get your money back and... Jake, the problem isn't the money. The problem is that Brandon lied. If he made up a story about a bet to hide that he lent my money without permission, he'll make up other stories to hide other things. But, Jessica, thanks for calling, Jake. Tell Brandon he can keep the money. I don't want anything that comes from him. Jessica hung up the phone and stared at the ceiling. Technically, Brandon hadn't lost the money gambling, but he'd lied about that too, which in practice was even worse. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. The next morning, Jessica woke with a strange feeling. For the first time in 2 years, she didn't have to think about wedding preparations, guest lists, or vendors. She was free. She went to the kitchen, where she found her father making coffee. "Good morning, sweetheart. How are you feeling?" "Different, Dad. Sad but relieved." "That's normal. You made a hard choice, but the right one." Jessica poured coffee for both of them, and they sat at the kitchen table, just like they had every morning since she was a child. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetheart." "Do you think I was too harsh on Brandon?" Mr. George took a sip of coffee before answering. "Sweetheart, my father taught me something I've never forgotten. A man who doesn't keep his word to a woman doesn't keep his word to anyone. Brandon didn't keep his word to you. But what if he really changes?" "Jessica, remember your cousin Richard." Jessica did. Richard had promised his wife for years that he'd stop drinking. He always relapsed and always begged for one more chance. "I remember, Dad. Some people change, sweetheart, but most only promise they'll change. And a smart woman doesn't bet her future on a promise." Just then, someone knocked at the door. Jessica answered and was surprised to see Mrs. Evelyn, one of her oldest clients. "Mrs. Evelyn, please come in." The 60-year-old woman looked worried. "Jessica, sweetheart, I heard what happened yesterday. I came to tell you something." They sat in the living room, and Mrs. Evelyn took Jessica's hands. "Sweetheart, do you know my story?" Jessica knew Mrs. Evelyn had married very young, been widowed early, and raised 3 children alone. "A little, Mrs. Evelyn. My husband was a good man, hard-working, but he had one flaw. He lied about money. Always made up stories to explain where our money went." Jessica listened closely. "I always forgave him because I thought love meant accepting the other's flaws. You know what happened?" "No, Mrs. Evelyn. When he died, I found out our house was mortgaged, that he'd taken out loans I never knew about. I almost ended up on the street with 3 small children." The story moved Jessica deeply. "Sweetheart, yesterday you did what I should have done 40 years ago. You protected your future before it was too late." Mrs. Evelyn stood to leave but handed Jessica an envelope first. "What's this, Mrs. Evelyn?" "Some dress orders. My friends were impressed by your courage yesterday and want to give you work." Jessica opened the envelope and saw 5 requests for dresses for parties and events. "Mrs. Evelyn, I don't know how to thank you." "No need, sweetheart. Strong women help strong women. That's how it's always been." After Mrs. Evelyn left, Jessica looked over the orders more carefully. If she made all the dresses, she'd earn over $2,000. It was a fresh start. The phone rang again. This time it was Sarah. "Jessica, how are you?" "I'm okay, Sarah, still processing everything." "Listen, I have some news for you. Remember Melissa, that woman who owns the boutique downtown?" Jessica did remember. Melissa owned a small women's clothing store and had always praised Jessica's work. "Yes, I remember. She called me this morning, said she wants to talk to you about a partnership." "A partnership?" "Yes. She wants to open an atelier for custom-made clothes and thought of you as a partner. She said she's always admired your work." Jessica felt her heart race for the first time in days, but this time with hope, not anxiety. "Do you have her number?" "I do, but she said she'd rather talk in person. She wants you to come by her store tomorrow morning." After hanging up, Jessica kept thinking about the possibilities. A partnership could mean financial stability and a chance to grow professionally. That afternoon, she decided to take a walk around town to clear her head. Charlotte was as lively as ever on Sundays, with families strolling downtown and couples dating in the squares. As she walked, Jessica reflected on the last 2 years of her life. She'd been so focused on becoming the perfect wife that she'd forgotten to nurture her own dreams. She worked hard, but always with the we she'd build with Brandon in mind, never the I she could become on her own. On her way home, she passed by the church where her wedding was supposed to take place. Father Matthew was in the garden tending to the plants. "Jessica, how are you, my child?" "Hi, Father Matthew, I'm okay, thank you. I want you to know I was proud of your courage yesterday. Do you think I did the right thing?" Father Matthew stopped working on the plants and looked directly at Jessica. "My child, I've been officiating weddings for over 20 years. I've seen women marry knowing they were making a mistake, just because they were afraid of disappointing people. You had the courage to choose your dignity over others' opinions." "But Father, what about forgiveness? Shouldn't we always forgive?" "Forgiving doesn't mean accepting disrespect, Jessica. Jesus forgave, but he also set boundaries. You can forgive Brandon and still choose not to build a life with him." The priest's words brought Jessica peace. She wasn't a bad person for making that decision. That night, Jessica sat at the sewing machine that had belonged to her mother. It was an old machine but worked perfectly. She began working on the first of the 5 dresses Mrs. Evelyn had ordered. As she sewed, she thought about how drastically her life had changed in just 2 days. 24 hours earlier, she would have been Jessica Miller. Now she'd remain Jessica Parker, but a renewed version of herself. Work had always been her therapy. The rhythmic movement of the needle, the precision required for every stitch, the satisfaction of seeing a piece take shape. That was what truly defined her, not the status of wife she'd almost taken on. Around 10 at night, someone knocked on the door. Mr. George answered and returned with a serious expression. "Sweetheart, it's Brandon. He wants to talk to you." Jessica took a deep breath. "Let him in, Dad, but you stay here with me." Brandon walked into the living room looking worn out. He was wearing the same clothes from the wedding, now wrinkled with deep bags under his eyes. "Jessica, can we talk?" "Go ahead, Brandon. My dad will stay here." "I came to return your money." Brandon placed an envelope with the $15,000 on the table. "I don't want the money, Brandon." "What do you mean? It's rightfully yours." "It was rightfully mine before you lied about it. Now I don't want anything from you." Brandon sat on the couch looking exhausted. "Jessica, I know I messed up. I know I lied, but I can't accept that you won't give me a chance to fix things." "Brandon, you had 2 years of chances. 2 years to treat me with honesty and respect. You chose not to." "But I love you, Jessica." "No, Brandon, you love the idea of me. You love having a woman who works hard, doesn't complain, and accepts your lies without question. You don't love me as a person." Mr. George, who had remained silent, decided to step in. "Son, do you think love means lying about money?" "Mr. George, I didn't want her to worry." "Lie? You didn't want her to know you're untrustworthy." Brandon lowered his head with no arguments left. Jessica stood and walked to the window. "Brandon, do you know what hurts the most in all of this?" "What?" "Finding out you never saw me as a real partner. Partners don't hide financial decisions. Partners don't lie about where they spent money. Partners don't plan to deceive their own wife on their wedding day." "Jessica, I can change—" "Brandon, for God's sake, stop!" Jessica turned sharply. "Stop promising change. If you were capable of changing, you would have done it in the last 2 years when I talked to you about honesty." "But—" "There's no but, Brandon. It's over. You can keep the money, the house we were going to rent, all the plans we made. I don't want any of it anymore." Brandon stayed silent for a few minutes, finally realizing there was nothing left to say. "What if I promise I'll never lie again?" The question came out almost desperate. Jessica looked at him with a mix of pity and sadness. "Brandon, you're lying right now. You can't promise you'll never lie because lying has become a habit for you. It's how you solve problems." "That's not true." "Isn't it? Then explain why you made up the story about the bet when you actually lent my money to your cousin." Brandon turned pale. He clearly hadn't expected Jessica to know that. "Who told you?" "It doesn't matter who told me. What matters is that even yesterday, even after I caught you in one lie, you kept lying." Mr. George stood from his chair. "Son, I think it's best you leave. My daughter has made her decision clear. Brandon stood too, leaving the envelope with money on the table. Jessica, I'll wait for you to change your mind. Don't change your plans for me, Brandon. Live your life. After Brandon left, Jessica picked up the envelope and handed it to her father. Dad, keep this. It's not mine, but it's not his either. One day we'll figure out what to do. Sweetheart, are you sure you don't want to keep the money? I'm sure, Dad. I want to rebuild my life without anything that reminds me of this. Mr. George hugged his daughter. Your mother would be so proud of you. Dad, sometimes I worry I'm being too proud. Sweetheart, there's a difference between pride and self-respect. Pride is thinking you're better than others. Self-respect is knowing you deserve to be treated with dignity. On Monday morning, Jessica dressed carefully to talk to Melissa about their potential partnership. She chose a simple but elegant dress, one she had made herself, and pinned her hair into a neat bun. Melissa's boutique was in the historic district of Charlotte, on one of the city's most charming streets. The shop was small but well organized, with high-quality clothes tastefully displayed. Jessica, I'm so glad you came, Melissa greeted her with a warm smile. Melissa was 45 and had opened the boutique 5 years earlier after her divorce. She was a determined, independent woman Jessica had long admired from afar. Thank you for seeing me, Melissa. Sit down, let's talk. They settled into a small area of the shop reserved for personalized service. Jessica, first I want to congratulate you on the courage you showed last Saturday. You heard what happened? Sweetheart, everyone heard. And do you know what most women said? That they wished they'd had the same courage as you. Jessica was surprised by the news. Really? Really? In fact, that's what made me think of the proposal I want to make. Melissa leaned forward, showing genuine interest. Jessica, for 2 years now I've been thinking about expanding my business. I want to open a high-end atelier focused on custom-made clothes for special women. Special women? Women like you who value quality and authenticity. Women who prefer investing in one well-made, unique piece rather than buying several low-quality items. The idea immediately intrigued Jessica. And how would this partnership work? I'd provide the initial capital and the space. You'd contribute your talent and experience. We'd split the profits 50-50. Melissa, I don't have money to invest. Jessica, your investment isn't money. It's knowledge. I know how to sell, how to handle clients, how to manage. But I can't sew like you. This combination could work beautifully. Jessica felt a rising excitement. This was exactly the kind of opportunity she'd always dreamed of, but never allowed herself to pursue. Can I think about the offer? Of course, but don't take too long. The sooner we start, the better. Jessica left the boutique with a euphoria she hadn't felt in a long time. It was as if a door to a completely new future had opened. On her walk home, she passed the church again. This time, she found Mrs. Dorothy sweeping the entrance. Mrs. Dorothy! Jessica, my dear, how are you? I'm good, Mrs. Dorothy. Actually, I'm great. That's wonderful, dear. You deserve to be happy. Jessica hugged the woman who had always been kind to her. Mrs. Dorothy, can I ask you something? Of course, dear. Do you think I did the right thing last Saturday? Mrs. Dorothy stopped sweeping and looked straight at Jessica. Dear, I had 3 daughters. They all married young. 2 married men who were no good, just so they wouldn't be alone. Do you know where they are now? Jessica shook her head. One lives with me because her husband drank away their savings. The other is always borrowing money because her husband can't hold a steady job. And the third? The third waited. She married at 32 to a man who truly respected her. Today, she's the happiest of the 3. The conversation with Mrs. Dorothy strengthened Jessica's conviction that she'd made the right decision. That afternoon, she was working on the second dress when the phone rang. It was Jennifer calling from New York. Jessica, how are you? Much better, cousin. And you, did you get any information? I did. Legally, you absolutely have the right to sue Brandon to get the money back. But I have a different suggestion. What? Why don't you use the money he brought back to invest in your business? Jessica had told her cousin about Melissa's proposal. Jen, I don't want anything from him. Jessica, listen. You wouldn't be doing him a favor. You'd be taking what's rightfully yours and using it to build your independent future. Jennifer's perspective made Jessica pause. Think about it this way, her cousin continued. Is it better for that money to sit in a drawer or to be used to give you financial independence? When you put it like that, Jessica, the best revenge against those who doubted you is proving them wrong. Use that money to build a successful business. After hanging up, Jessica kept thinking about her cousin's suggestion. It made sense. The $15,000 could be the capital she needed to go into business with Melissa on more equal terms. That night, she talked to her father about the idea. Dad, what do you think about me using that money to invest in a partnership? Sweetheart, if it's money that's rightfully yours, I think you should use it however you want. But won't it seem like I'm accepting things from him? Mr. George took a moment before answering. Honey, you rejected the man, not the money that's legally yours. One thing has nothing to do with the other. On Tuesday, Jessica called Melissa and scheduled another meeting to discuss the details of their partnership. This time, Jessica arrived at the boutique with more confidence and a different proposal. Melissa, I thought about your offer, and I have a counter-proposal. I'm listening. What if I also contributed capital? I have $15,000 I can invest. Melissa looked visibly surprised and intrigued. Jessica, that would completely change our partnership. It would be so much better for both of us. How so? With more starting capital, we could begin with a larger inventory, better equipment, and a more suitable space. They spent the whole morning discussing details, the atelier's location, the type of clientele they'd target, marketing strategies, and division of responsibilities. Jessica, I think this partnership could really work out, Melissa said at the end of their conversation. I think so too, Melissa. When can we start? How about next week? I already have a few commercial spots in mind. Jessica left the boutique with a signed letter of intent and a schedule of tasks for the coming months. For the first time since the wedding incident, she felt like she was building something positive. Over the next week, Jessica and Melissa visited 3 potential locations for the atelier. The third one, an old house in Uptown, won them over immediately. It's perfect, Jessica said, as she walked into the main room. The house had 2 bedrooms that could be turned into workrooms, a large space for client consultations, and a small but charming backyard where they could do photo shoots. And the price is within our budget, Melissa added. They signed the lease that same day and immediately began planning the renovations. Jessica threw herself into the new project. She worked during the day finishing dresses ordered by Mrs. Evelyn and spent her afternoons at the new house, arranging furniture and equipment. Word of their new partnership spread quickly through town. Jessica started receiving calls from women interested in ordering custom-made clothing. A week after signing the lease, Jessica was at the new house waiting for the furniture to arrive when someone knocked on the door. It was Brandon. Jessica, can I come in? What are you doing here, Brandon? I heard about your new business. I came to congratulate you. Jessica sighed but let him in. Thank you. Now if you'll excuse me, I'm busy. Jessica, I'm proud of you. The words caught her off guard. What do you mean? You were right. I never appreciated you the way I should have. Only now, seeing what you're building, do I understand what I lost. Jessica stopped unpacking boxes and looked at him. Brandon, you didn't lose anything. You chose not to value what you had. I know, and I regret it every day. Brandon, I truly wish you happiness. But our story is over. I understand. I just wanted you to know I've learned a lot from everything that happened. I hope you really have, and I hope you treat the next woman in your life with more respect. Brandon said goodbye and left, leaving Jessica with a sense of closure. It was as if a chapter had truly ended. 2 weeks later, the Jessica and Melissa atelier opened with a small party for friends and acquaintances. Mrs. Evelyn was there, as was Mrs. Dorothy, Ashley, Sarah, and several other women who had supported Jessica throughout the entire process. Girls, I'm so proud of you, said Mrs. Susan, Jessica's aunt, during the toast. "Thank you for all your support, Auntie," Jessica replied. Father Matthew also showed up to bless the new venture. "Jessica, may God bless this new path you've chosen." "Thank you, Father Matthew. You were very important in all of this." The celebration was small but meaningful. Jessica looked around and saw only people who truly rooted for her success. Melissa approached her with a glass of soda in her hands. "Jessica, I think we made the right choice." "I think so too, Melissa. Thank you for believing in me." "We're going far, Jessica. I'm sure of it." 3 months after the opening, the atelier already had a 2-month waiting list for custom dresses. Jessica had hired 2 assistants and was considering expanding the space. One afternoon, while working on an evening gown, Jessica received an unexpected call. "Jessica Parker." "Yes, speaking." "This is Modern Woman magazine. We'd like to do a feature on your atelier." Jessica nearly dropped the phone. "A feature?" "Yes. We heard your story and found it very inspiring. We'd like to highlight women who turn difficult moments into opportunities for growth." The article came out 2 months later, titled "The Bride Who Chose Freedom." The piece told Jessica's story respectfully, focusing on her courage and determination to rebuild her life. The impact was immediate. The atelier began receiving orders from other cities and even other states. Jessica and Melissa had to hire more employees and rent the space next door to expand the business. A year after the wedding that never happened, Jessica was at the atelier working on a bridal gown when Ashley showed up with an anxious expression. "Jessica, I need to tell you something." "What is it, Ashley? You look worried." "It's about Brandon." Jessica stopped sewing. "What about him?" "He's engaged again." Jessica stayed silent for a few seconds, processing the information. "Engaged?" "Yes, to Sarah's cousin Amanda." "Do you remember her?" Jessica vaguely recalled. "Amanda was a younger, naive girl who always admired older men. And you came to tell me because she reminds me so much of you back then. She accepts everything he says, doesn't question anything." Jessica resumed sewing, keeping her hands busy while organizing her thoughts. "Ashley, Brandon is no longer my problem. Whether he learned anything or not is between him and Amanda." "But Jessica, don't you think you should warn her?" Jessica stopped again and looked at her friend. "Ashley, everyone has to make their own choices and learn from their own experiences. I can't live other people's lives for them." "But what if he does the same thing to her that he did to you?" "If he does, she'll have to decide how to react, just like I did." Ashley left the atelier a little frustrated with Jessica's response, but Jessica knew she had made the right decision. Her responsibility was to her own future, not Brandon's past. 2 months later, Jessica was helping a client when Sarah rushed into the atelier. "Jessica, you won't believe what happened." "Calm down, Sarah. What is it?" "Amanda broke up with Brandon." Jessica kept taking the client's measurements, unfazed. And she found out he was lying about his job." "Sarah, that doesn't surprise me at all." "But Jessica, she wants to talk to you. She wants to know how you had the courage to call everything off at the altar. If she wants to talk, she can come here, but I won't go running to console her." Amanda appeared at the atelier a week later. She was a 23-year-old woman with red eyes from crying so much. "Jessica, can I talk to you?" "Of course, Amanda. Have a seat." Jessica poured coffee for both of them and settled in to listen. "Jessica, I wanted to understand how you found the strength to do what you did on your wedding day." "Amanda, every situation is different. What worked for me might not work for you. But the thing is, I still love him." Jessica recognized in Amanda's words the same conflict she had felt a year earlier. "Amanda, can I ask you something?" "Sure. Do you love him or do you love the idea of being with someone?" Amanda stayed silent for a few seconds. "I don't understand." "Do you love Brandon for who he really is, including the lies and irresponsibility, or do you love what you hoped he would be?" I guess I hoped he would change." "And do you think it's fair to yourself to stay with someone hoping they'll change?" Amanda began to cry again. "But what if I never find someone else? Amanda, it's better to be alone and respected than to be with someone and disrespected. But people will say I'm too picky. Amanda, people will always have opinions about your life. The question is, will you live to please others or to be happy? The conversation lasted another hour. Jessica didn't advise Amanda to break up with or stay with Brandon, but helped her reflect on what she truly wanted for her life. After Amanda left, Jessica thought about how her own perspective had changed in a year. She no longer felt anger toward Brandon or sadness over the wedding that never happened. She felt grateful for discovering who he really was before it was too late. The atelier was thriving beyond all expectations. Jessica and Melissa had become true friends, as well as efficient business partners. They planned to open a second store in New York the following year. One Friday evening, Jessica was closing the atelier when a man appeared at the door. "Excuse me, are you still open?" Jessica checked the clock. It was 6:30 in the evening. "Actually, we're closing, but if it's something quick, I'd like to order a dress for my mother." The man was tall with dark hair and looked about 35. He had a kind smile and a respectful demeanor. "Of course. Please come in. What's the occasion?" "It's for my parents' wedding anniversary. 50 years together." Jessica smiled. She always got emotional about enduring love stories. "How beautiful! Does your mother have any preferences?" "Actually, I wanted something special. They lost everything in a fire 2 months ago. The house, their clothes, the photos. I want to give her a dress that makes her feel special again." The story deeply moved Jessica. "How awful! Are they okay?" "They are, thank God, but my mother is really shaken. She lost her wedding dress, all the clothes she insisted on keeping." "I understand. What's your budget?" The man hesitated. "Well, to be honest, I don't have much money. I work as a teacher and am helping my parents with basic expenses, but I really wanted to surprise her." Jessica was touched by his sincerity. "What's your name?" "Michael. Michael Davis." "Michael, how about this? You tell me a little about your mother, her measurements, the style she likes, and I'll see what I can do." "You'd do that?" "I can give you a special price." Michael shared that his mother, Mrs. Elizabeth, was 68, had always been an elegant woman, and had worked as an elementary school teacher her whole life. She liked soft colors and had a classic style. "Michael, here's what I'll do. I'll create a special dress for your mother. You only pay for the materials." "Jessica, I can't accept that." "Of course you can. Love stories like your parents deserve to be celebrated." Michael was visibly moved. "How can I thank you?" "No need to thank me. Just promise you'll bring your mother here after the party so I can meet her." During the following week, Jessica devoted herself with special care to Mrs. Elizabeth's dress. She chose a soft blue fabric with delicate lace details in a classic yet modern style. Michael stopped by the atelier a few times during the process, always respectful and interested in the progress. "Jessica, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why are you doing this? You don't even know me." Jessica stopped sewing and looked at Michael. "Because I believe small acts of kindness can change someone's day. Your mother has been through a great loss. If a beautiful dress can make her smile, it's already worth it. You're a very special person." "I'm not special, Michael. I just choose to be someone who helps when I can." On the day of the fitting, Michael arrived accompanied by a petite, elegant woman with kind eyes. "Jessica, this is my mother, Elizabeth. It's a pleasure, Mrs. Elizabeth. My dear, I don't know how to thank you for what you're doing." Jessica showed Mrs. Elizabeth the finished dress, and she was moved to tears. "My dear, it's perfect. It's been so long since I've felt this beautiful." "You're naturally beautiful, Mrs. Elizabeth. The dress just enhances it." Michael helped his mother try on the dress. When she stepped out of the fitting room, she was radiant. "Mom, you look stunning," Michael said, clearly emotional. "Thank you, my son. And thank you, Jessica." After Mrs. Elizabeth went to show the dress to her husband in the car, Michael stayed behind to talk with Jessica for a few minutes. "Jessica, I'd like to invite you to my parents' party." "Michael, that's very kind, but I don't want to intrude." "It wouldn't be an intrusion. My parents would love to get to know you better." Jessica hesitated for a moment. "When is it?" "Next Saturday at 7 in the evening. It's at a small steakhouse right here in the neighborhood. All right, Michael, I'll be there. The following Saturday, Jessica dressed carefully for the party. She chose a simple yet lovely dress, also of her own design. The party was held at a cozy steakhouse, decorated with great affection by the couple's children and grandchildren. Mrs. Elizabeth was radiant in her new dress, receiving compliments from everyone. "Jessica," Mrs. Elizabeth hurried over to greet her, "I'm so glad you came." "Thank you for the invitation, Mrs. Elizabeth. You look absolutely beautiful." Michael introduced Jessica to the entire family. They were simple, hard-working people who welcomed her warmly. During the party, Jessica had a long conversation with Mr. William, Mrs. Elizabeth's husband and Michael's father. "Jessica, my dear, I don't know how to thank you for what you've done for Elizabeth." "No need to thank me, Mr. William. It was my pleasure. You've brought back her joy since the fire she'd been so down." Jessica was touched to see how a simple gesture had positively impacted the family's life. Michael approached them. "Jessica, can I steal you for a few minutes?" They walked to a quieter corner of the steakhouse. "Jessica, I want to thank you again. My mother hasn't stopped talking about you. I'm happy to have helped, Michael. Can I ask you something personal?" "Go ahead." "Are you married?" Jessica smiled. "No, I almost was, but I realized in time he wasn't the right person." "I'm sorry. I'm not. It was the best decision I ever made." Michael looked at her with admiration. "You're a very strong woman. I've learned to be. Life has taught me we must be the protagonists of our own story." They talked late into the evening about dreams, plans, and life experiences. Jessica learned that Michael was a history teacher, loved to read, and had a world view that aligned closely with hers. "Michael, I should go. I open the atelier early tomorrow." "Can I take you home?" "Thank you, but I drove here." "Well, can I call you during the week?" Jessica smiled. "Of course." Michael called the following Tuesday, inviting Jessica to dinner on Saturday. She accepted. The dinner was at a simple but cozy restaurant. Michael turned out to be an interesting man, respectful and genuinely interested in getting to know her better. "Jessica, can I ask you something that might sound strange?" "Go ahead." "Why is a woman like you single?" Jessica laughed. "Michael, what kind of question is that?" "It's just that you're beautiful, smart, hard-working, kind. I don't understand how anyone let you slip away." "No one let me slip away, Michael. I chose to walk away from a situation that wasn't good for me. Can you tell me what happened?" Jessica shared the story of the wedding that never happened, without going into too many intimate details, but being honest about the reasons for her decision. "Wow," was all Michael could say at the end. "Wow, what?" "You had the courage most people don't. I just did what anyone with self-respect would do." "Jessica, you're mistaken. Most people would stay in that situation out of fear, comfort, or social pressure." "What about you, Michael? Have you ever been in a similar situation?" Michael was silent for a few seconds. "I have. I was married for 5 years to a woman who cheated on me. It took me 3 years to find the courage to leave." "Why so long?" "Fear of being alone. Fear of never finding someone else. Fear of admitting I'd made the wrong choice." "And how are you now?" "I've been single for 2 years. Ooh. I'm much better alone than in bad company." The conversation flowed naturally between them. Jessica felt an immediate connection with Michael, but also a fundamental difference. He had learned from his mistakes, just like her. In the following months, Jessica and Michael began seeing each other regularly. He respected her pace, understood her need for independence, and genuinely admired her strength and determination. Melissa soon noticed the change in her business partner. "Jessica, you seem different." "Different how?" "Lighter, happier." "Is it Michael?" "Yes. He's a really good person, Melissa." "I'm happy for you. After everything you've been through, you deserve to be happy." A year and a half after meeting Michael, Jessica was at the atelier on a Thursday afternoon when he showed up with a mysterious look. "Michael, what a surprise. What are you doing here?" "I came to invite you somewhere." "What kind of invitation?" Michael knelt in front of Jessica, pulling a small box from his pocket. "Jessica Parker, will you marry me?" Jessica was stunned for a few seconds. She hadn't expected this. "Michael..." "Jessica, I know you have reasons to be wary of marriage. I know you had a bad experience, but I also know we're different." "How do you know?" "Because in the last 2 years, I've never lied to you about anything. I've never hidden any important decisions. I've never made you doubt my respect for you." Jessica looked at the simple but beautiful ring in the box. "Michael, I need time to think." "Of course, you don't have to answer now. But I can answer one thing right away." "What?" "If I say yes, it'll be because I'm absolutely sure you're the right man. I won't marry out of fear of being alone or because of social pressure. And I wouldn't want it any other way." Jessica thought about it for a whole week. She talked to her father, Melissa, and her friends. They all said the same thing. Michael was completely different from Brandon. The following Saturday, Jessica invited Michael to dinner at her place. "Michael, I've thought a lot about your proposal." "And?" "My answer is yes." Michael beamed. "Are you sure?" "I am. You've spent 2 years proving you're trustworthy, honest, and that you respect me as a person." "Jessica, I promise I'll never let you down." "Michael, don't promise the impossible. Just promise you'll always be honest with me. That I can promise for sure." Jessica and Michael's wedding was set for 6 months later. This time, Jessica felt no anxiety or fear. She felt peace and certainty. The ceremony was simple, in the same church where her first wedding would have been, but with a completely different energy. Father Matthew, who had followed Jessica's entire journey, was visibly moved. "Jessica and Michael, may God bless this union built on mutual respect and honesty, Mr." George, now 70 years old, walked Jessica down the aisle with tears in his eyes. "My dear, now you're truly marrying someone who deserves you." During the ceremony, Jessica looked at Michael and saw in his eyes a sincerity she had never seen in Brandon's. There were no doubts, no fear, only genuine love. When the priest asked if she accepted Michael as her husband, Jessica answered with a firm and clear voice, "I do." The reception was small but joyful. Everyone was there. Jessica's family, Michael's family, her true friends, and the clients who had become like friends. Mrs. Dorothy, now 72, made sure to be present. "My dear, you deserved this moment of happiness." "Thank you, Mrs. Dorothy, for everything." Melissa was Jessica's maid of honor and gave a heartfelt speech at the reception. "Jessica, you taught me that sometimes you have to tear everything down to rebuild it better. You turned pain into strength, disappointment into opportunity." During the couple's first dance, Michael whispered in Jessica's ear, "Thank you for waiting for me. Thank you for making the wait worth it." The end. And you? What did you think of this story of courage and new beginnings? Tell us in the comments if Jessica made the right decision and how you would react in a similar situation. Your opinion means a lot to us. If this story moved you, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other inspiring stories like this one. Thank you for being here with us.